Tupper, District 3 Commissioner and President of the Board. It's 5 p.m. the April 21st regular meeting of the Jefferson County PUD Board of Commissioners. Per the Governor's Proclamation 2028, in response to COVID-19 pandemic, Jefferson County PUD will no longer be providing an in-person room for meetings of the BOC. All meetings will be only accessible remotely via WebEx until we have further information or any more extensions by the Governor's order. Please note that all audio will be muted upon entry and will unmute at the appropriate time to speak. So with that, I'd like to get introductions from the commissioners to confirm that we have a quorum for the record.
Kenneth Collins, Commissioner, District 2.
Jeff Randall, Commissioner, District 1.
We have a full quorum then. Any other introductions, Kevin, that you think are necessary?
No, we have both the staff here, but no introductions from staff today.
Okay, so with that, we'll move on to the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
I had one item, this is Jeff, that I would like to add under new business, and it specifically relates to how we're doing with our, I think it's the rainy day fund, the contributions that are coming into it, and what we're hearing from St. Vincent de Paul and OLICAP in terms of the demand during this coronavirus period.
I don't have any objections to Kevin or Joel. I know we're supposed to stick strictly to pertinent business. Is this one that we can get in under that guise?
Can I interrupt everybody for a minute?
Go ahead, Kevin.
Gene is going to give an update where we are on low income and stuff like that based on the coronavirus and what we're seeing. So Jeff, how about if maybe some of your questions, if they don't get answered by Jean, you could ask her when she's doing her update on where we are based on the virus.
That's great. Sounds good.
So we'll do that when we do 5.1 under the general manager and staff reports. We'll discuss it there. Is that, am I understanding everyone correctly?
So I move for approval of the agenda.
I'll second. Any other discussion on approval of the agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor of accepting the agenda as presented, say aye.
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 We have an agenda as presented. I guess I should ask one question real quick. Are we going to have an executive session? Is that definitely, it's on there as number 9. I should have said something before we passed the agenda. It said possible executive session under 9. We need to verify that?
Yes, we will have an executive session.
So should I read that into the record now, or should we just wait till we get to number 9? Anyone have thoughts on that?
Commissioner Tupper, this is Joel, and it's probably best to handle right at the time on the agenda rather than right now.
Okay, thanks, I appreciate that. So the motion was moved, seconded, and approved, so we'll move on. The agenda is going to go as it is. At this point, we'll do general public comment. Period is for any items not specifically listed on the current agenda or for items listed on the consent agenda. The chair may place time limits on public comments to allow the meeting to be conducted in an efficient and orderly manner. I'm going to restrict everybody to one time of 3 minutes per person. If you could state your name for the record, it would be helpful, but it's not required. So with having said that, we'll also allow public comment as we go through the agenda. So you will have a chance on each issue as they come up to us as well. So with that, I'll open public comment. Do we have anyone who wants to comment at this time? Will, are we having anybody with difficulties of trying to get in that you're aware of, or?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so I'll call one more time. Is there anyone anyone on the meeting that wants to comment on general public comment at this time? All right, well, with that, we'll close public comment. Like I said, we'll have the ability for people to weigh in as we go. I did have.
Hello?
Who's this?
Hello? This is Roger.
Oh, okay, Roger. Did you have public comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Will for his work trying to get me on the meeting last week. My computer's working a little better this week. And I wanted to just mention something for FYI for the public benefit. The 408 number, I tried calling on a landline, and for the first meeting, it worked, and I got a $28 bill. And the second time, they don't recognize the number. It says, please dial 10 digits. And again, I tried it on the landline just to see, and it says you need 10 digits. And so it's not recognizing the number. That is CenturyLink. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. I'm on a cell phone today.
All right, thanks, Roger. So, Will or Kevin, do we a $28 charge to one of our participants? How does that happen? Do we have any idea how that happens?
I don't know, but I'll look into it.
Okay.
Yeah, CenturyLink says it's a local call, but I got billed anyway.
Okay, well, Roger, if you could get with staff and keep them in the loop on that, maybe we can look into seeing, what we can do about that. I'm not sure. You're the only one I'm aware of that had that kind of an issue of getting charged. All right.
I had no idea how it happened.
Anything else on your 3 minutes, Roger? You good?
I'll hold my tongue.
Okay. Well,
It'll be hard for you to talk if you're holding your tongue, Roger.
at least he's only on the phone and not on video, so something there. So
It's easier than watching your eyes.
All right, thanks. So I do want to have one quick follow-up on Roger's comments last month. I would like to see the public, if they could, we try and get the information out early as best we can with the agendas. If people come across, inconsistencies or they have questions about stuff, please feel free to get a hold of your commissioners or a hold of staff to try and work out those issues before the meetings. These meetings can be problematic. The more stuff we can work out ahead of time, the better and easier it makes it, to run the meeting and to make sure we get things right. I do it myself to staff's chagrin. I'll get a hold of them if I see stuff ahead of time and call it to their attention so that we're more prepared for these meetings to go smooth and have all the information we need up front. So that's my little piece on public comment. Anyone else?
This is Jeff. I just want to respond to what Roger's bringing up, and I just want to make sure that that this number we're using for WebEx, I don't think we want to have a barrier to our local folks participating. So, I would think it should be some sort of toll-free thing or something. If it's costing people something, it should cost the PUD, not general public members locally in East Jefferson County to participate by phone, but that's just my thoughts.
I agree, Jeff. I'll look into it. Chris and I had talked about options for a toll-free line, and I can talk about it with Chris again.
Okay, anything further on public comment? So we will go ahead and close public comment at this time. That moves us on to the consent agenda. Approval and adoption of the consent agenda items listed below have been distributed to the commissioners in advance for study and will be enacted by one motion. If separate discussion is desired on an item, that item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at a specific time at the request of any of the commissioners. So with that, I would ask for a motion to accept and approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any other questions on the consent agenda before we have the vote? Hearing none, I'm assuming, Will, do you know, is anyone trying to get through or are you able to tell?
I don't see anybody.
Okay, so with that, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor accepting the consent agenda as presented, say aye.
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 Unanimous. Consent agenda is passed. That brings us to item number 5, general manager and staff reports.
So we have quite a few people speaking today. We'll start with Jean. She's going to do an update on our low income and coronavirus, how people are paying. Give us some information along those lines. So Jean, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. For our low income program, we are just about at capacity. Yesterday, when I looked at our month-end numbers from last month, we're at 95% capacity, leaving room for about 15 more customers to join, and Maureen has that many pending. So we've discussed, we're going to continue taking applications, but any more than those 15, and by the end of the year, we'll be looking at going over our $450,000 budget. As for folks paying, I am seeing an increase in our arrears. We have quite a few customers. We're still running our cutoff process. We're just not going out and disconnecting folks. And it's large. It's very large. Over 100 people. As for arrears, and I expect to see the numbers go up in our 90-day arrears after the month end, which is going to be May 4th. That will be the end of our April revenue month. Currently, we've seen an 8% increase in dollars in our 30-day arrears with a 3% increase in the number of accounts. Our 60-day arrears, we've seen a 47% increase in dollars with 24% increase in the number of accounts. And our 90-day arrears, we've seen a 4% decrease in dollars, but we have 12% higher number of accounts with 90 days and years. I will keep you posted as we go on. After month end, I will get something else out to you with updated numbers. As for Holy Cap and St. Vincent, I know that they are being flooded. There's not enough help out there for folks right now. People who were just scraping by now can't scrape by. I can get you the numbers for Power Boost and your rainy day donations. I don't have them in front of me right now. I can tell you we had a few really large donations in the last couple of weeks, one in the amount of $5,000 and one in the amount of $1,000. So thank you to those folks who were very generous. And that's about all I've got. Any questions?
So Jean, this is Dan. So on the graph that you sent out, it looked to me like things were kind of tracking somewhat normally. It's just like we're a month ahead of where we would be normally because of this. And I'm assuming it's going to escalate.
Yeah.
So with the 100 number that you threw out there, do we have a plan set up with those 100 people, or are we going to be able to set up a plan for those 100? What's the outlook?
At this point, we are not setting, well, we're setting up some payment arrangements if folks believe they are going to be able to pay. Otherwise, we're waiting until this is over because really we have no way of knowing when they're going to start being able to pay. And we're going to have to sit down as staff and management and decide how we want to move forward. How long do we want to carry this arrears amount? I have a lot of ideas as to how we can help customers get through this. But I think that's a conversation we're going to have closer to a time when we know when we're going to get back to a semblance of normal.
Thanks, Jean.
Gene, this is Jeff. So,
Hi, Jeff.
you bring up a couple of really good points, and I'd like for us to talk briefly about the low-income assistance program, just briefly. And I guess this is a question for Gene and Kevin both. You mentioned that, when we talk about that $450,000, that goes back to I think it was 2016 when the commissioners established the program and raised the base rate $2 to offset budgetary impacts by having the program. So now we're approaching that $450,000 that is offset by the $2 base rate increase. So my question for staff, and this may be something that the board needs to provide direction on. My understanding at the time is we had conversations about having a certain amount of money in that account, and that once it was depleted, the program would be closed. And I think the city of Port Angeles was brought up as an example of how they run their low-income assistance program or energy assistance program. And my recollection at the time, I wasn't on the board, but my recollection at the time is there was no indication from the board that they wanted it to shut down if a certain amount of money was reached. And I guess my question to Gene and Kevin, what's your understanding of the program? Are people going to be turned away when we get to $450,000, or does the board need to provide some direction on this?
Can I go, Gene?
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin. We actually talked about that.
Right now, Jeff, we don't see it really going over budget that much. We have no intention of closing it down. The few customers that we're going to add, they need to be added. They will be added, and we'll move forward. If it gets much higher than what we're thinking, we will come back to the board and address the shortfall in the budget. But right now, it's not going to be a large shortfall, and I believe the intent was to, if we ever hit that $450,000, just to continue on and see where we end up. We're not expecting a huge over budget issue with this item. We will be over budget, but it'll be a very small amount.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that, but kind of curious as to how the other commissioners feel about it.
Well, I think the $450,000 figure was arbitrary, not knowing what the uptake would be, and certainly not anticipating any kind of situation like we're presently in. And I certainly think that if we're talking about a small number of people, then we tweak the budget so that we can accommodate them. But I think we also need to be aware that there may be other sources for the PUD that can help us in this situation. One of them, I think, being FEMA, that is aware that utilities may be in exactly the situation that we are approaching, that we have significantly reduced income, but in some ways greater demand for services. There also, I think, may be some state money, and I think that we ought to be in contact with George Kahn, because other PUDs are in a similar situation in the state of Washington. And this is one of those emergent set of conditions that is shared by, I think, most PUDs, except those who happen to have their own power generation and still probably can absorb a lot more of a drain than we can and other small PUDs are capable of.
Yeah, there's going to be, like you said, it's hard to say what the funding streams are going to be to cover this after it's, I won't say over and done, but as it progresses. And the governor, I think we need to follow the governor's lead, make sure that we communicate to the public that we're going to do everything within our power to help our customers, accommodate our customers. But even the governor and Waputa pointed to this, that we need to make sure that people understand that this isn't debt forgiveness. We are going to have to figure out what time period we're going to recover costs and what effect it's going to have on other programs. If we try and if we get too big of a lump of people that don't realize that they should be conserving as much as possible and thinking about what they can do to help us as well. I don't know stark of terms, but we do need to be mindful of that.
So this is Jeff again. So that it's encouraging to hear from staff that you don't have any intention to close the program, that this is an early heads up, that we may get to the budget number for that assistance. And just to remind everybody that for the first 3 years of the program, we never got to 450,000. So in some ways, we collected more for 3 years than was going back out. So I think we totally have capacity to have it go over that what Ken says is a little bit of an arbitrary budget number. And I would also support, if we think we can get any assistance from the feds or the state on helping our customers out, I think we should go for it too. So the second point I wanted to bring up that Gene's comments relate to the situation that OLECAP and St. Vincent de Paul are in, with people really struggling more than ever to pay their bills. And it's good to hear that we've had a couple of customers kick in some additional money. And what I'm wondering is, can we help tell the story of how things are changing, help maybe tell the story of OLECAP and St. Vincent's a little bit on the help they're trying to do. And what I'm thinking of is the comment that was made by Randy, the president of the Waputa board from Chelan PUD, how he talked about he had gotten his $1,200 check, or maybe it's $2,400 with him and his spouse from the federal government. And his point was, hey, I'm not in the position where I need this money. And he was encouraging all the PUD commissioners who were similarly situated to try and donate that money to a helpful cause. And the thing I think about is how many retirees we have in Jefferson County whose income is fine, who have no problem covering their bills, who are receiving these checks, and maybe trying to do a concerted appeal to them that tell the story about the situation that's going on with people who have lost their income, who have kids at home and are really struggling. And if we could see if we could help pump up those numbers a little bit and get a little bit more money going towards St. Vincent's and OLECAP while this is going on.
I think that's a good idea.
So staff, do you get any direction out of that? Are you still looking for some direction or any comments?
I think we have direction. We can do some outreach, work with different agencies. Later on in the report, I'm going to talk about the Jefferson County Foundation and the ask they've already had for the PUD. So there's things we can do and we will do.
And Kevin and Will, I guess the thing I'm thinking of too, especially, is using KPTZ to the extent we can, and using the newspapers to the extent we can, as well as our own newsletter, to reach out to people and remind people how to donate to the rainy day fund, how to make that as easy as possible, and remind them how to do it, and encourage ourselves in what we can do.
Okay, so anything else? We have another report, Kevin, from you, or?
No.
Gene, if I'm guessing, is that it for Gene?
That's it for Gene. Oh, go ahead, Gene.
No, I was going to say I'm done if there's no more questions.
I don't have a question, but I want to thank you, Gene, for the chart, which makes it very clear what the trend is.
You're welcome.
Okay.
So, along the lines of COVID-19, Kevin, anything?
Yes, we're going to have Mike give us a budget update with COVID-19 revenues. It's been a warm winter. Mike will give us just a real quick budget review, so we know where we are with 19. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm here. So for the month of March, our revenues are not right on budget where we thought they would be. Year to date, we are a little bit under budget. Going in, we won't know April until after May 4th. But for revenues, we may not see some of this for another month or two, based on billings and everything. We are trying to reduce costs. We have a lot of people working from home. We're reducing, the work that we've done. We don't have contract crews working, so that's helping. So we're just watching our costs as we go through this, and it still may be a month or two before we see the full impact of how all this is going to affect us. And like what Gene was saying, with some of the the money not coming in with the revenue, with people not paying their bills, that's going to affect us for the next couple of months or so beyond that. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Commissioners, any questions?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. From what I'm reading, I think we need to anticipate that the process of people coming back to work is going to be very slow. From what I understand, in the state of Washington and across the country, the capacity to do the kind of testing that we need to do simply isn't there. We're doing about a third of the tests, conservatively speaking, that we need to be doing in order to track the virus. So I think it's going to be a slow process. And that being said, we need to anticipate that.
Thanks, Ken. Jeff, anything? Okay, so
Dealing with my mute button. No, I agree with Ken, and we are in uncharted territory here. And I listened to a little bit of the City of Port Townsend City Council meeting last night, and they furloughed a bunch of employees. And I'm actually thankful that we're in the business we're in, because people want their water and electricity and sewer on, so they're paying their bills if they possibly can. So I think we're seeing less of a financial impact than other government entities are, and I think this is going to go on a while. And so I think we got to brace ourselves and think creatively, just like we have with these meetings, on how to get business done. And the point Ken brought up about FEMA and so forth, I think we should be looking to those organizations if there's any money that's out there. And I'm glad that I've heard Mike say that staff is tracking their costs, so we can hopefully get some reimbursements from FEMA down the road. But I am very concerned about the customers who are normally working, who can't work, and who have kids at home, and what it can mean to this county long term with this shutdown. So I'm just hoping, I'm glad that we're sensitive to it. That's what I'm hearing.
So I have a question for Mike. Because we work on a accrual system like we do, and we're realizing there's going to be an impact on revenues. I mean, what kind of a lag do we have right now? A carryover cost from 2019. I realize we have the building, the main construction going on there. I mean, how are things matching up or catching up with each other? I mean, when you do the financials the next time around, is it going to make sense?
Yeah, it should make sense. I mean, most of 19 expenses, happen in the year, unless they're the capital projects, which we put a lot of the capital projects on hold right now. So we're not spending as much. I mean, that money, yeah, it's still budgeted, but it's not going out. How long it takes to get the building going back again, we'll have to wait and see.
So I guess
the governor, but
yeah. So my follow-up is: Are you gonna submit the financials I don't know if it's the next meeting or the meeting after. I don't know what rotation we were on. Are you going to have any added information in there, or will we see it in the same format we normally do?
It will probably be. They will be the next meeting. It will partially be in the same format, but I can add a little bit more. I can get with you afterward at another time and see what you're wanting. Talk to Kevin, and yeah, we can add some additional information as to where things are at this year compared to last year with everything that's happening.
Okay, that was my question. Thanks, Mike. Anything else for Mike?
I don't have anything.
Okay, back to the manager. Anything else on COVID-19?
Yes, our next speaker will be Joel. He's going to talk about a couple possible meetings that we want to do and whether we should or shouldn't. Joel, do you want to take over?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks. So I just wanted to, Kevin was concerned about trying to comply with the new Open Public Meeting Act rules, but also trying to provide the commissioners and the public as well some information about what's going on. So, as you know, the Attorney General has helped provide some information about how public agencies can do their business during this time of emergency and at the same time meet the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act. And what they've said is that essentially public agencies should really limit the work that they're doing in public to necessary and routine matters or matters that really relate to responding to the COVID-19 public health emergency. And they gave a lot of good guidance about that, but essentially boils down to, they can't tell you exactly what necessary and routine items are, but they should be those items that are both necessary and routine to the agency's work. And they gave, examples of, past, timely payment of payroll, addressing IT systems, renewing contracts that might expire. But they also give an example of providing essential public services to protect the health and welfare of constituents. And, that's really at the core of what the PUD does. It provides both water and electricity to the health and, to provide for the health and welfare of its ratepayers. So, as long as it fits under that, I think the PUD can continue to conduct business, keeping in mind that things like, strategic planning, you might want to hold off. That might not really be necessary and routine, or, starting to undertake an analysis on a new meter system. Maybe that can wait for, the lifting of the emergency order. And keeping in mind that, the core tenets of the Open Public Meeting Act are that the business of government should be done in an open and transparent manner. So, having special meetings are fine as long as they're both necessary and routine, since, the PUD has been doing these quarterly special meetings around your budget and compliance, particularly given the discussion that Jean just led. I think it's absolutely appropriate and fits well within what the Attorney General was thinking about. So it's really an ad hoc analysis, an individual, and what's necessary and routine at the end of March may not be necessary, may be something different at the beginning of May. And we just have to take a look at it on a case-by-case basis.
So hearing that, Kevin, is there anything you see that's coming up on the radar that we should be under that category of things we do want to take on?
one of the things we've talked about internally is to do our quarterly report, gear it more on the financial side to show kind of where we are this year, the projects we're doing, what we aren't doing, and tie it back into the budget. Not only, I think that's important just because it would be a meeting dedicated to the things we are doing and our budget. And I think that's important for the board to hear all that. And we're looking to do that in maybe a May timeframe.
Commissioners, any thoughts?
I like that
This
idea.
is Jeff. Go ahead. Yeah, this is Jeff. I agree. I think staying up to date on the budget and where we're at is necessary, and it's also kind of routine for the board to hear where we are on budget. And I thought I had on my calendar that it was going to be on April 24th at one point, that first quarter review. So we canceled that date and we're looking for a new date in May.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And I think we'll call it a special meeting. I think that's in line. It gives us a chance to put some of that information out to the public that is following and tracking what's going on. So rather than just commissioners getting presentations individually or whatever about the numbers, that to me is something that we're probably getting close where we should something like that out.
Dan, your voice fades out.
Okay. Again, I'll reiterate that if I think it's a good time and a good idea to have a meeting along those lines for financial purposes to allow the public to hear. Any other thoughts on that particular? Hearing any response? Am I still on there? Is anyone hearing me?
Yes.
Okay. You had me worried there, Ken. I thought maybe I'd gone dark. So.
No, but I did not have any other thoughts.
Okay, so one piece of business I did hear that the CAB has canceled its May meeting. I'll throw that out there while we're talking about things that are coming up because of the COVID-19. So again.
Oh, this is Roger.
Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, I had some comments and some questions. One comment is
3 minutes, clock's running.
our monthly reports are on an accrual basis. So is our budget. Jeannie's the one that has her fingers on the pulse. She's the only one that's running on a cash basis. So stuff that money that doesn't get collected isn't going to show up. There's a big difference between revenue and collections. So we have to depend a lot on Jeannie's reports going forward and letting us know exactly where we're at. A question for Kevin Street, by class, which classes are showing an increase in electrical usage and which classes are showing a decrease, and do we know how much? For instance, are we seeing a decrease in small business or an increase in residential?
Well, I'm going to interject here, Roger. We're trying to kind of stick close to the topics of COVID-19. To get with staff on those things, I think we're already talking about having a meeting to discuss financials. So I'd rather we not get too far into the weeds at this meeting with that kind of information. I
was trying to make a comment on Kevin's report.
Okay, well, like I said, let's kind of keep.
And that was my question.
The COVID-19. So,
all right.
If you want to is that it, Roger? Or?
No, I'll reiterate the question. Since the COVID-19 outbreak, have we seen an increase in electrical use by residents, or have we seen a decrease in electrical use by small businesses?
So
that's a question
Roger,
for Kevin Street.
Yeah, Roger, I can talk to you offline. We know the March revenues were up. We don't have it broken down per class based on the date we peaked was not a business day, it was a residential day. It was a Sunday, so that leads us to believe we peaked because of residential load. Usually we peak because of business load. So that's a quick synopsis, but for a detailed report, some of this we can put together for you, but it's primarily the residents are driving our peak now.
Thanks.
The businesses aren't.
Thanks. That's what I wanted to know.
This is Jeff. I just wanted to, you said our revenues have peaked, but I think what you meant to say is our load is peaked, which is different than people actually paying for their load when the bill comes due.
Revenue was up slightly from where we estimated it, though, Jeff. So both load and revenue were up for March.
Thank you.
So anything else from the general manager?
Yeah, I have a couple things real quick. The school district and a couple other organizations reached out to the PUD to install some public Wi-Fi for school children and others in the community. As of today, the PUD's installed 5 Wi-Fi spots, 210 Four Corners, Hastings sub, Chimicum sub, Dana Roberts sub, and Gardner Fire Station. The PUD is working on the Visitor Center in Port Townsend, the fire station on Maristone, and Chimicum Primary School. And those 3 will be connected this week. We're also working on the Quilcene School District, the Quilcene Substation, and the Port Townsend Airport. On our board to start working on is the Coyle Fire Station, and in Brennan, the Halfway House, the Lazy Sea, and the Community Center. We're pushing as hard as we can to get some areas hooked up on the Wi-Fi. I have had comments back from others. It's been a good success. The broadband that we're putting in is has worked well for the community, so that's where that project is. Quickly, I'm going to segue into the next request we had. John Catlin with St. Vincent de Paul was part of the Jefferson County Foundation meeting this week. One of the requests, or what was talked about, is not only is our Wi-Fi needed, but there are some quite a few homeless people that need some charging stations. In the past, they would charge at the public libraries, they would go into public buildings, restaurants, and charge their phone or their tablet. Right now, none of those places are available to this portion of our community. So we have reached out to a couple partners. We've talked to some people on how could we do this safely. We don't have all the information yet, but it's a very inexpensive, small program that we can do to help out the community. The ask was for a couple places in Port Townsend and 1 or 2 in Port Hadlock area. We would reach out to the Quilcene area and possibly do some more, but this is a very, very small project that if we could partner with a couple people, we should do. It would take us a day to get the couple sites they want up and running, and so it's something we are working towards. Any questions on that one?
Not on that, but I jumped back to the previous one. Did we coordinate with Mason at all down in Brennan about the hotspots? Were they looking at doing anything down there? Because Mason 3 does the communications for Mason 1, don't they?
So before the school district, the Brennan School District came to the PUD, they went to Kitsap, they went to Mason 1, and they went to Mason 3. They were pretty much told, at least today, nothing could be done for them. So we already had a meeting set up with the 4 local school districts. The regional superintendent school districts brought Brennan in, and we have had a couple meetings with her and are moving forward. They are in our service territory, and we're trying to be creative. We've talked to Kitsap County about maybe helping us. We're looking at a couple options. We may partner with some people down there. We think we can help them. And again, they are in our service territory. We don't do much in the Brennan area, and this would help out their community. Their superintendent of the schools really needs some help in a couple spots, and our preliminary site investigations, we can help.
I want to comment that speaking individually, I'm really very pleased that Kevin, you've been proactive as well as the staff in coordinating with other community organizations, with the school superintendent, and other groups to provide this vital service for people. And it really makes me proud of the PUD.
Yeah, I'll second that. My only question for asking that, Kevin, was just to make sure there wasn't any duplicity, that, you know, that somebody else wasn't already trying to do something. That was my only reason for asking that question.
And then moving forward,
Jeff,
we will. Oh, excuse me, Jeff.
Okay, all I was going to say is I want to concur with what the other commissioners are saying. Very much support what you're doing, appreciate all the work. And just curious as to what we're doing to kind of get the word out there to where the wireless hotspots are going to be.
Will, do you want to take this one?
Sure. Yeah, there was an article on the Leader website, probably will run in the Leader paper tomorrow. And I've been updating Facebook and our website as we've added each hotspot. And it's gotten quite a bit of Facebook traffic. And as we keep going, we'll add more. I also built a little Google map so people can find all the hotspots, our network hotspots, as well as other networks like the library and community centers. We built a Google map, and I've been sharing that and put it on our website.
Is this something maybe county emergency services, you know, or the management that we should be making sure they're aware of?
Yeah, I've been in touch with Jeannie McKinney at the county, and they had a list going. They were going to add our spots to it, but I'll share the new Google map with Jeannie as well.
So can I just make a comment on this as well? This is Don. At the daily meeting that we have with the EOC and the IMT, where a lot of the agencies in the county are there, a lot of them know about it already, and they're really pretty happy with what's being done. And so getting the map out in addition to that has been very helpful. And, you know, the PUD got a lot of kudos over the effort they're making. That's it.
Thanks, Don. So back to Kevin. Are we back with you?
Yeah, I'm done. We can go on to the next topic.
All right. Any further questions on the COVID-19 update? All right. Hearing none, we will move on to number 6 on the agenda, old business. Please hold your public comments until the presentation on each item is complete. And then before we have a final vote, we'll allow the public to weigh in on these. 6.1 is mutual aid agreement.
So I'll jump in here on the mutual aid agreement. We were looking at putting a mutual aid agreement together with the city of Port Townsend and with Olympic Water and Sewer. After a little bit of research, and Joel helped us here, the city of Port Townsend already is a member of Warren, which the PUD is a member of, and it's all water utilities agreeing to help each other. The Olympic Water and Sewer has applied to become a member of that organization. They should know, they may know today. I will reach out to them and find out. But based on those existing agreements that we all share, we're covered. We don't need a mutual aid agreement. It is not necessary based on belonging to the larger group. So that's where that is.
Commissioners, any questions?
I have no questions.
Jeff? So I do have one question. I know at the last meeting, Roger brought up an RCW that related to this type of an issue. Did we get any clarification on that? I know we had some conversation. Anybody want to wade into that at all? I mean, I think it's pretty cut and dried in our governance in the RCW that we can enter into contracts or not enter into contracts. Tie up that loose end. Weigh in on that at all.
Well, this is Joel. The only thing I have to say about that is really in response to the actual mutual aid agreement through Washington Warren agreements provides a basis for everybody to cooperate through those mutual aid agreements. So I don't know what the RCW that was referenced, I don't know what that says, but this seemed to be a really nice, simple, easy way to allow the PUD to work with two other fellow utilities and have all the process in place already. So it's kind of a simple way to go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I'd heard about the WA Warren at another entity. I don't know if it was a county commissioners meeting or somewhere. I'd heard about that before. So I'm happy with the way that we're going, the way we're moving forward. Anything else, commissioners?
No, I'm fine with that analysis.
All right. Any other questions on the mutual aid? Hearing none, we'll move to 6.2, the resolution for 300 Four Corners purchase. I think we all have a resolution that was in the packet. I'm assuming Scott's going to weigh in with this, Kevin?
Yes, Scott has kind of been in charge of this project from the get-go. Do you want to kind of review the highlights, Scott? Hello, Scott.
What's plan B?
Well, plan B is I can wing it.
Hey, that's my line. I get in trouble whenever I use that line. So
I'm
well, commissioners, any issues with the resolution? Commissioner Collins, Commissioner Randall, in that order?
He shows to be on the call. Maybe he's muted.
It doesn't look like he's muted, but I don't know why we can't hear him.
so
Thanks to Annette for all the work, and Joel, all the work you guys did on the resolution. Much appreciated.
So I'm going to give you some highlights unless Scott jumps in. Are you there, Scott? So the benefit to purchasing 300 Four Corners, the property owner wants to sell, 3 properties adjoin the parcel, have encroached on PUD property and could become a difficult situation. If we purchase the property, that goes away.
Hey, Kevin, can I hold you up for a second? Melanie's chiming in here, I think, to Will. Can you remind everybody how to unmute their phones? If they've called in, it's *6, correct? Is Will there?
Yeah, I think everybody heard you.
Okay, all right. So that could be what's hanging everybody up. So I didn't want to interrupt you, Kevin, but I saw Melanie send a message up here on the screen. So *6.
You got me, Dan?
Yep,
Oh,
there
there's
you go,
Scott.
Woo!
All right.
Yeah, I start this there.
I think Kevin's going to pass the baton to you.
Okay, just. All right, there's really many benefits to buying this property. And there, as I pointed out in that email to the BOC, that the biggest thing I can see is one of the biggest things is the encroachment on the property line. And the problem with the encroachment is those encroachments are fenced line now, probably for the last 20 years. And I don't see a real positive outcome out of those, you know, us dealing with it and getting a positive result. The other thing is, the other important thing is control of everything in front of 310 Four Corners. Because we ran into an issue that the Public Works parcel, they did some clearing with some trees, which caused a problem with the neighbor across the street. Now he can see in at night and gets a lot of light exposure and noise exposure. With that, it caused a problem for him. And when we put in for a permit for a building construction on our new 310 site, one of the parameters that the county has set on us is we've got to put a row of trees up to block that lighting and noise. If we don't do that, we don't get a certificate of occupancy. Wasn't real fair, wasn't right, but unfortunately that's the hand we were dealt. The other positives I see in that 310 Four Corners potential is we need a wash station that has a catch basin in it. That could be a potential site. We could potentially need overflow parking for 310 Four Corners. That could be a potential site. We also need, we could have a potential Jefferson County PUD building / EOC building on site there. It's really endless, the opportunities that parcel gives us. I'd like to see us in the future purchase that whole row of parcels in the future for expansion reasons.
So I have a quick question for you, Scott. I agree with a lot of the positives of why it makes sense to do this. My question is the well, and is it on a well or is it on our city water, or what exactly is it on?
I'm not sure about the well, but it is on a septic. I know that. I think it has a well, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I can find out and email you that answer.
Yeah, so that, like I said, that's my question, is to utilize the property in its current form. You know, I realize there's some things we can do with it. And I was just curious if those were issues we looked at or not, was the well and the septic. If it had a well. I hadn't asked that question. Thanks, Scott.
I have a question, Scott. If I understand you correctly, the PUD is going to need to plant a row of trees in front of our property so that the light from our buildings doesn't impinge on the property owner across the street.
That's correct. It will be, the row of trees will be, I don't know if you remember where the gas pumps are on site, at the gas pumps there along that front fence.
Okay.
and it's approximately 30 trees.
Yeah, and that county parcel is east of our drive going into our property there. This 300 pieces on the other side of our drive. So just for clarification.
So Scott, this is Jeff. So just to clarify, if we go ahead with the purchase of the property, it does not affect our requirement to plant those trees. Is that correct?
No, that has nothing to do with those trees, that parcel of property. What that parcel of property, what will help is, I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
No, go ahead, sir.
Oh, I was just going to say, so it sounds like you're bringing up that point as an example of when you have residences this close to our operations, these are the kinds of conditions that the county can impose on us. So having these residences so close could result in other future impacts like that. It sounds like that was kind of your point.
That's affirmative. The importance is having control of around the 310 Four Corner site.
So any other questions on the purchase itself? Commissioners, are we good with that part of it?
So I will make a motion to approve the resolution that finalizes the offer to purchase the real estate that is at 300 Four Corners Road.
Second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution, and might add a little bit. This gives the manager the ability to do whatever it takes, correct? That's really what the crux of the resolution is about, correct? Am I understanding that right, Kevin?
Correct. It allows me to sign the documents.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion on this purchase or this resolution?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that the presence of a septic system on is it a single lot, is going to preclude the use of parking and possibly other things too. At some point, you're going to have to decide whether to keep the septic or get rid of it.
Yeah, I'm sure staff will make recommendations in the future as to the use of that property. Thanks. So any other discussion or comments on this before we have the final vote? Hearing none, at this point I will, all those in favor of accepting the motion, say aye.
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 Unanimous. So the resolution is accepted. Kevin, you have the ability to do what it takes.
Thank you.
All right, so that puts us on to new business, in which there is no new business at this time. Any other questions before we go to commissioner reports?
I have one, Dan.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Jeff, you had a couple questions on St. Vincent de Paul, and I don't know if we answered them. You were going to add it to new business. Did you get your questions answered?
My questions were answered, and we did give staff some direction, so I feel very comfortable that we handle those issues.
Thank you.
One thing I'll ask at this point is, we should probably start anticipating, what our return to work is going to be like for the employees. I don't know if that's something to be the next agenda item or not. That falls into the purview of the kind of business we can be doing, but I would hope that we're all thinking about that, and along that line, venues for having in-person meetings as well. Is that something that we should be thinking about at this time? Any thoughts?
Dan, staff met today on a plan to how to bring people back, when, processes. So that is a plan that we're working on now. So I think by next meeting, the first meeting in May, we can add it to the agenda. We're still looking at a couple new policies and procedures we would like to implement. So on May 5th, we can have a new item.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I just thought it was worth throwing out there as something we should probably all start thinking about. So with that, we will move on to commissioner reports. Commissioner Collins, if you go first. Commissioner Randall, you go after that.
Okay. On the 8th of April, I attended via video conference the NOAANET board meeting. They reported that February was a very good month, up $400,000 from last year's February. They passed an emergency resolution dealing with the current situation with the COVID-19 virus. They talked about the effects of the sheltering in place on NOAANET's business activity. They're also involved in setting up hotspots in various districts and are responding to requests for increased bandwidth, doing so at nominal cost, with the expectation that they'll revert to regular pricing structures once the crisis abates. On the 14th, I was part of the audit exit interview, and I want to again express kudos to the staff for another clean audit. Well done. The 15th through the 17th, I participated through video conference in the PUD Association meetings. In the broadband meeting, there was a mention that the Public Works Board passed a motion to provide up to $1 million for hotspots. There was some concern that there could be legal obstacles to doing so. There was also mention of the expectation that the federal government will provide $50 million for hotspots, that money will be funneled through the state government. Russ Elliott, who is the broadband czar for the state, will want to map the hotspots across the state. There was also mention of CenturyLink willing to partner with PUDs and provide what they call a hotspot in a box that can operate either on a fiber feed or cell service to provide local connectivity where none is available. NOAANET is testing that now. The other point that I want to make about the PUD Association, they decided that elections for the officers should take place in May and voting will be electronic. On the 20th, I had a phone conference with the general manager. And this morning, I participated in a webcast from the Public Disclosure Commission. Looking forward to what might be a very unusual candidacy this year. I will be on the phone tomorrow and the following day for the board meeting of Energy Northwest. And on the 5th of May, I am planning on tuning into the U.S. Department of Agriculture telemedicine grant program webinar. And I'll report back if there's anything that seems particularly pertinent for us, any opportunities where we could further expand our broadband availability so that people can take advantage of telemedicine going forward, where that may be the most practical option for people to be in touch with their physician or nurse practitioner. And that's my report.
Okay, I guess I'm next. So on the 14th, I also participated in the audit exit interview, and also I want to express appreciation to staff for the excellent work that got us a clean audit. Participated in the PUD Association meetings from the 15th through the 17th. The Commissioner Roundtable discussion was interesting, hearing all the different conversations about what's going on with the coronavirus in different communities. And I'm pleased that what seems to be happening here in Jefferson County are people taking it very seriously. And my home county of Grant County, one of the commissioners commented that people were kind of going about their business, and they actually had the sheriff having to remind people that they were supposed to be staying home. So I'm pleased that in our county we are taking this seriously. In the Energy Committee and the Government Relations Committees, a couple of things that came up that were interesting was Senator Sheldon stating that his belief was that the legislature would be holding a special session in the fall to deal with some of the budgetary and other issues from the coronavirus, that it's believed that the state is heading into a recession. And I think Nicholas at one point stated that he'd heard something about like a $1 billion estimated shortfall, and I can't remember where I heard it, if it was Senator Sheldon or on KUOW, but they're now estimating the state's looking at more like a $6 to $10 billion shortfall. I don't know if that's in the biennium budget or what they're looking at, but significant amount of money. And then in the number of bills they vetoed, including the community solar bill, that added up to a savings of about $450 million for the state. So that kind of helps make the point of why the governor vetoed that legislation that would have been helpful to us. But they're looking at trying to plug the gaps in the bleeding. During the executive committee, it was brought up that Clallam PUD has been expelled from PPC, and that's concerning to me, the process that's or lack of process that seems to have gone on there. And I was just reading through the newsletter from PPC on that, but I've been talking to our attorney about it a little bit, and I am concerned about how PPC is handling this and how they're alleging their information is confidential. So that's something that concerns me, and we are participants in PPC, so something I'm concerned about. On the 23rd, I'll be remotely participating in an North Olympic Development Council meeting, and then I've got a meeting scheduled with Kevin Street for this coming Friday by phone. And that is my report. Hello, hello.
I'm here. Commissioner Tupper, are you there?
He's showing that he's muted.
Oh, did you have me muted, Will?
Nope.
You want me unmuted, so do you want me to start over?
Yep.
So, okay, I didn't touch anything. I shouldn't have been muted. All right. I spoke with Manager Street on April 8th. I attended the weekly Water Committee COVID-19 roundtable via Zoom on the 9th. At that meeting, George Kahn spoke about legislation that the governor had vetoed and possible impacts on PUDs. Not getting the utility B&O tax credit for low income was one of the big notable things that came through in the vetoes, like Jeff talked about as well on solar. There's a lot of things that are going to impact utilities in a negative way, and that's a big one, especially since it has to do with helping us to be able to deal with low income funding. Bill Clark, the PUD's lobbyist on the water side, is tracking work being done by the Department of Ecology that could impact municipal water law. And anytime that those kind of things take place, that affects anybody who's in the water business. So again, that's something I'm sure Samantha and Bill are tracking closely. It has to do with water rights and water transfers and compensations, criteria, and different things. There were discussions again about concerns with all participating utilities on obtaining PPE. I'm hoping, Kevin didn't talk to it, but I'm hoping that we're not having any issues along that line. Water people or chemicals that we need to be treating the water and that sort of thing. They also talked about arranging for remote signatures, which is we were ahead of the curve on that. They're all talking about doing things like the DocuSign that we're starting to use ourselves. And they're also talked about tracking the costs for this emergency to help make claims and find funding. So WAPUDA is definitely very proactive at looking at a lot of things that are going to revolve around trying to get funding for recompense during this period of emergency. On April 14th, I took part in the exit audit. Again, good job by Jackson Thornton, it appears, and great job of staff of getting information and resources to them that they need to make it successful. So, clean audit is always a good thing. I attended the WAPUTA meetings on the 15th, 16th, and 17th, and my fellow commissioners already hit the high notes for most of the discussions that took place at those. I'm going to speak with the manager on April 22nd, and I'm going to participate in the WAPUTA Committee COVID-19 Roundtable on the 23rd. So that's my report. Any questions on the commissioner reports? Any follow-ups? Hearing none, that moves us on to the tricky part of the evening's agenda, and we're going to be in new ground. So those of you who are on the phone with us, or members of the public and staff, hopefully this is going to go off right. We are going to have an executive session. So before I read anything along that line, do we want to do a little background, Kevin, on what the process will be? Or Will?
So, Will, do you want to explain to them what you're going to do with people in the meeting, that kind of thing?
I'm going to try to put everybody in a lobby. It's going to be difficult for some of the call-in users because I'm not sure who all of them are. I know Jeff is calling in user number 4. So if who among staff is staying in the meeting, Kevin?
So Melanie will stay in, Annette will stay in, and Mike will stay in.
Okay. So if I accidentally put somebody in the lobby who isn't supposed to be there, please email, but I can start putting people in the lobby at any time.
So I need to read this before we do it here. So executive session, the Board of Commissioners are going to dismiss into an executive session pursuant to RCW 42.30.140, parentheses 4, parentheses A, to discuss the status of collective bargaining and contract negotiations with one of the PED's labor representatives. So now we need to have a time for how long we think this is going to take. And I would say with Will not being sure about how everyone's going to come in and out of this, we go a little bit extra. So does anyone have an idea? 20 minutes? What kind of a number are we looking at?
Dan, I was going to say 20 minutes. If you want a little bit of a buffer, you may want to go 25.
So do I hear 30? Commissioners, any ideas? Jeff, Ken, that sound good?
Let's try for 20 and then go over if we need to.
Well, I'll have to. The thing is I would have to come back out and announce it, Ken. It's better that we.
Yeah,
All right,
I guess
never mind.
my recommendation would be let's pick the upper side and we'll just use the time, and then you'll be able to dismiss out of it and won't have to ask Will to bring everybody back into the main WebEx meeting.
So everybody heard the RCW and the reason. Are there any questions on that? We have a time set. So having said that, I'm going to ask that we stop recording and have Will start placing everybody into the proper lobbies.
Okay. I'm stopping the recording.
So are we recording?
Okay, we're back.
It looks like we are.
And it's recording.
So this is Dan Tupper, president of the board. We're going to extend our executive session for, what is it, it's 6:44 currently. Do we want to extend for another 10 minutes?
Yes.
So we are going to extend for another 10 minutes or 11 minutes. We'll actually go to 6:55. So, Will, if you want to go ahead and put us back into executive session by putting everybody else in the lobby, we're going to extend out to 6:55 p.m.
Okay, hitting pause on the recorder now.
Looks nice and green and leafy outside your window.
Yeah, lots of trees around our house.
Everybody's back in and we're recording again.
Stan Tupper, President of the Board. It is 6:56. We are back in session. I don't believe we have any action to be taken. So is there anything else for the good of the order?
I would like to suggest that, Will, you explore doing our meetings over Zoom, which is what the PUD Association used, and they accommodated more than 60 people. I'm finding WebEx to be not nearly as responsive, I think.
Yeah, I think WebEx is a little less user-friendly. Chris set this up, I believe, as part of our Cisco subscription with our phone system, and he did the evaluation and choosing. I can speak to him about it. I don't know that we'll be able to change at this point.
Well, all I'm asking is that you make an inquiry. So thank you.
Sure.
All right, so is there anything, that's it for our agenda. So is there?
Commissioner Tupper,
Yes, go ahead.
was there any action taken in the meeting?
We can't actually, Tammy, we can't take action in the meeting. When we came out, I think I stated that there was no action to be taken.
Thank you.
So Joel can correct me if I'm wrong. I think that was what we needed to state.
Okay.
So with that, is there anything else for the good of the order? I don't think I've missed anything on the agenda. All right, hearing none, I will put this adjournment at 6:50 p.m. Okay, Will, I think we're done.
Okay, stopping.